I saw your frog ad before I ever knew your name. And then it immediately made me turn off my lights. And I'm not even the target market for renewable diesel, but it made me think I should do better things for the environment. So good job. And then we were talking and you showed me your DENSO ad, which made me think, okay, this guy is actually telling stories. He's not just playing with AI. And that's kind of what I want to dive into today. Like, how do you take something like renewable diesel or an event invitation and turn it into a story that's fun, that's emotional, that makes people actually care? Before we get into it, hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Prompt. This is a show where I sit down with creatives that are using AI in real world workflows to make content that actually lands. I'm Sana, I run Imaginoo. We're a creative studio that helps beauty, fragrance, and wellness brands stand out with AI-enhanced visual content and storytelling. And my guest today is Bas Dumoulin, who's the founder of WonderLoop, a creative studio that makes high-end personalized video ads, often for tricky, technical, or maybe just plain boring products. But the end result, it's always sharp, it's always watchable. He's worked with brands like Nike, Heineken, Tommy Hilfiger, and has more than 25 years of experience in storytelling. Now, whether it's a chicken or a frog in a sauna or a car leaving trails of steam, Bas knows how to wrap a clear brand message inside something fun, surprising, and memorable. And these days, he's taking that taste and storytelling instinct and applying it with AI in a way that honestly just sets the bar. So Bas, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sana. I'm really glad to be here. I just watched the first two episodes and they were amazing. I love it.
Glad. Okay, so I wanted to start with your frog ad. I'm going to play it real quick and then I have some questions for you. So let me play it.
Everything is fine. Just fine. But isn't it getting a bit hot? A bit too hot, perhaps? Climate change is real, but there is something you can do about it. Switch to a greener fuel before it's too late. Green Flash HVO, renewable diesel.
All right. Wow. You're talking about renewable diesel. It's not the easiest product to make interesting. And yet you made this fun, funny, weird, and a totally engaging story that ends with real emotional moment and a call to action. So can you talk me through how this came together? Like, did it start with the frog, the metaphor, or did you begin with the product challenge and then brought backward?
No, it actually started with a frog. My client is actually a screenwriter, and he had this idea from the start. It was a bit different. He wanted 12 frogs in one pond, talking gibberish to each other, not making a lot of sense and doing all talk but no action. That's what he felt like when he was trying to push the diesel in Taiwan, and policymakers just weren't making any decisions. Really, at that point, it was like, how can I make this technically work? I'm glad he was someone who was very open to changes. But the problem was mostly that when I started the initial images at that time, because it's almost a year ago now, I would ask for 12 frogs in a pan, but I would get 7 frogs and all of them looked the same, and or they were all sitting in 7 different pans. And really, in terms of prompt adherence, there was Dolly at that time, but it just looked very fake. So I just started thinking at that moment, yeah, what's the essence? Like, what's the main point I need to get across? It's not really about 12 frogs talking. It's to get the frogs to slowly notice that the water is coming to a boil. And then I decided I had to, probably it would be more effective if I would have a hard cut to one pan, and that would make it sharper, more visual, and more effective. So yeah, it's a good example of how you don't always need to execute every detail literally, but sometimes it's just stronger if it comes to simplifying.
That was great. And you have another ad that you did more recently, the DENSO ad. Can you play that for us on your end?
Yes, I can. Let me see.
Listen,
need to get a message to Linda Lulu Lupkins, and I needed to get there fast, so get me the stud. DENSO has the privilege to invite you as our esteemed guest to the exclusive VIP area at the DTM Zandvoort.
This video was made for Linda, who was actually my client, and she organizes events, among other things. She has a communication agency, and this one was for Denso, and they're an automotive parts manufacturer. So she proposed to them to shoot a video with Top Gear's The Stig to deliver the invitation through video to all the invitees. And every video needed to include the invitee's name and preferably on a superimposed image. So she said, let's shoot this. I asked her, when do you need it? And she said 2 weeks, but she didn't have the budget to shoot it either. Like maybe on an iPhone, do something. I suggested let's do this with AI. The Stig she wants to do, but it's IP. So we decided to create a similar person called the Stud.
Yeah, and what I liked about this one is that there was, the way you showed speed was things like Stud very slowly and confidently walked towards the car, being like, yeah, I'm going to make up the time for the drive over, steam from the wheels, all these little details that built this sense of speed, which is what I really liked about that ad. It just has this kind of quiet progression and momentum that works. Let's unpack that. Was that instinct? Is this stuff that you had already recorded videos that show speed building up, or how did you choose these particular elements to give that emotion of speed?
I think speed doesn't necessarily come from quick cuts. It comes from having a good rhythm. And also, I think it's all more about progression of shots. If you give information about something, then what's the next shot going to give? That's new information, so that you keep watching the actual thing. And then the real race part is a sequence that is, storytelling wise, not very interesting to me. It is interesting for the viewer who will get the video, and it's interesting to see their name. So we need to get to that as quickly as possible.
That's interesting. Now, I'm going to throw a scenario at you. So say you've hired a 20-something like AI creator. He's great at tools, he makes beautiful frames, but he's still learning how to tell a story. Like, he brings you the first draft of an ad, the visuals are clean, but it's missing that spark. You don't feel anything. So what exactly do you tell him? What should he do first, or what should he do differently? How are you going to basically communicate with him so that he could be a better performer for you and actually give you things where you may have to edit it a lot less and it has to go back for round changes a lot less? How are you going to teach him to do what you do?
Well, first of all, I would probably ask, what's the audience? Does he know what the audience is? And what do they need to feel? What's the end goal? Because that's what we're working to. And if you know what the end goal is and what you want them to feel, then you can start working towards that. And what's the tension? What do you want to reveal? And how, in what order are you going to show things so that the story progresses and stays interesting? For me, it's like an instinctive filter. Does each shot add new information or tension? If it doesn't, then it's probably just filler.
Right. You had also a way in which you showed me the slow flow.
Yeah, these are just some initial thoughts that I prepared before.
We could just verbally, because I think that's probably closest to maybe the internal checklist you use without necessarily realizing it at this point, right?
Yeah. So I think really filmmaking is about storytelling. It's you need the story, but you need a way to tell the story too. So that's the storytelling and the story are two different things. And then of course you have the tools, but anyone can use the tools, but they need to be used to tell the story as best as possible. And storytelling has certain rules, and that's really the language of film. And if you think of it, if you're reading a script, you have to think about the fact that you're going to be shown images. So, what are you going to say that's being said in between the lines? Like between one shot and the next, what's the implication? And if a viewer can understand, that's when it reaches their heart. So they need to, if you're reading the script, you need to first translate the text into images and then understand what those images really mean emotionally. And then shot one plus shot two, your brain is going to put them together and then understand and hopefully feel something. If you think of it as a puzzle to tell a basic story, actually to establish a situation, you need these three puzzle pieces, which is like location, character, and action. There can be more, there can be time, there can be different things. But if you have location, character, and action together, that's a situation. And the way you tell that can be location, character, action, but it can also be character, action, location. So that's up to you as a filmmaker to tell the way you want to tell the story and what you think is the most interesting way. But then that's just one part of the formula because that's going to give you information that's not going to necessarily draw you into the story. So what you do is you add an extra piece, which is a mismatch with the story or the situation that you've told before, and that's what's going to draw you into the story because then you're going to say, hey, wait, I just understood this, but now there's something else happening. What is happening? And any human will want to know, like, how does this end, or what's going to happen next, and how can I make this piece of information work with the rest of the story that I've just seen. That's basically how I think about story and how I think about building the shots to get them to a certain emotion.
A story that's safe versus a story that actually sticks in people's minds. What's the biggest difference?
I think there needs to be some kind of a reveal at the end. There needs to be a point why you've been watching this. Even a boring story could be told interestingly. I went to the grocery store, I bought some apples, the cashier added a banana, and then I went home. That's extremely boring the way to tell it. So what would be more interesting would be if you said, when I unpacked my groceries at home, there was a banana in the bag. I hadn't bought a banana. All I'd done was I'd go to the store and pick out some apples. And then it turned out that the cashier slipped it in without me noticing. As a story, it's still not a very interesting story, but at least it's told in an interesting way. So that is what you need to do when you're going to tell a short story, really, especially when it comes to commercials. You need to quickly get to the point, and you still need to tell it as interestingly as possible.
Gotcha. Just out of curiosity, is there a time when you made something that didn't land? And what was it, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, there are lots of times when it didn't go right, but I've been doing this for a long time. So, like, a lot of it is instinctively. But yeah, you still don't know. And sometimes you think you're being clever or you get sidetracked by thinking, I want to do something funny because I always want to make it fun. And then you kind of lose the point. So then it always means that you need to go back. What's the point of the story? Why am I telling this? And let's not try to get sidetracked. But it happens all the time.
So you said trying to be clever and funny, and then that doesn't land. If you think of your last 10 or so times or 5 times when it didn't land, what was going on that created that, and what did you learn from it?
In the Green Flash one, I thought it would be funny if one of the frogs would think he farted, and that's why the water was bubbling. And so I actually made a cut around that. But yeah, then the client told me it's just going to dilute the story and it's not going to tell it as strongly. And he was right.
Nice. Interesting. So Bas, this was great. Thanks so much. You have like such a clean way of turning ideas into stories, and I think it's super helpful for any creative who's wants to move beyond just cool visuals to work that actually connects. So where can people see more of your work? Where can they find you online?
I have my website, WonderLoop.nl. So I'm in the Netherlands, and yeah, that's where most of my work is. But it's not only AI work; it's also motion design and explainer videos.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks so much, and thanks for being part of Beyond the Prompt, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you so much, Sana.
All right, take care.